Hello and welcome to Creative Insights. We're live in Turnhouse, our UHI North West Hebrides Allness campus, with a live studio audience. Say hello, audience. Hello. Thank you, that was good. And in this video podcast, we dive under the surface of a range of creative works, discovering the artist's inspiration. In this series, we're going to meet a range of creatives living and working in the Highlands and Islands. I'm delighted to introduce Philip Paris, a writer and author based in the Highlands. Philip is best known for writing historical fiction and non-fiction books. There's a series of books in which Orkney's Italian chapel, built by Italian POWs during World War II, feature. And in 2024, Waterstones awarded him the title of Scottish Book of the Year for The Last Witch of Scotland. He's also written contemporary novels, including one about domestic abuse and another about residents in a Highland care home. His latest novel, A Fire in Their Hearts, is set in the 17th century. Welcome, Philip. It's great to have you here.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you. So this first question, what we're trying to do in these conversations is get a little bit of an insight into different creatives' processes and what inspires them and what, I guess, keeps them going through the long, hard time of developing creative work. And this first question is about what inspires you. So I'm interested in things that are not books, not literary influences on your own writing, what some of them might be.
What inspires me? My work is mainly influenced by events and issues. Mm-hmm. And I guess the thing that really does inspire me the most is if I can find an important event, maybe historical, that's not been written about before in the form of a novel, and it's something that really interests me, then that really gets me going. If you take, say, The Last Witch of Scotland, but you mentioned, now, I had known that story for many years because the book is based on the case of Janet Horne, and Janet Horne was the last person in Britain to be executed for witchcraft, mm-hmm. which was in Dornoch in 1727, so very nearby. Mm-hmm. And so I'd known of the story for a lot of years. But writers and I think the stories that they create, they have to come together, there's no pun intended, at the right time. Yeah. So I had been working on other works, and it wasn't until I'd finished Effie's War, and then I was thinking, well, what am I going to write now? I've got to be writing something. Mm-hmm. And I started to think of this case of Janet Horne. I began reading up about the Scottish witchcraft trials, which I was then just completely hooked on. It was something I knew nothing about whatsoever. Yeah. And I just got immersed in it. And you couldn't understand what was happening in Scotland without looking at what was happening on the continent, mm-hmm. as well, in terms of the witchcraft hunts. And that then, I just became immersed in it, and I then set out to try and tell the story of Janet Horne and her daughter, who were both convicted and sentenced to be executed. So sometimes with a story, you know the ending. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like the Titanic. You know at the end of the film the ship's going to sink. Yes. You know at the end of the book Janet will be executed because mm-hmm. that's a historical fact. So it's the journey to that point. Yeah, rather than maybe that, or what's going to happen. Yeah. It's not sort of mystery, and that's it's not that sort of work.
So that's a really good example. I'm interested. Do you then have a list of possible stories like that? Do you collect them, or is there a point in your process where you're writing, it's only when you finish you then look for something else? Is that
I don't have a list. It is what you've said. It's very much that I'm totally focused on whatever I'm writing, and that a historical fiction like The Last Witch The Last Witch of Scotland, that's typically 3 or 4 years work in terms of researching and writing and editing and all that sort of stuff. So and during that time, I'm not actually even reading much outside of the things I have to do for the research. Yeah. So it's only when that's finished that then I would look at, what am I going to write next? And I've always been driven to write. Right. And so I've always then been thinking, well, what's the next thing?
What's the next thing? And do you like that? Because there are some creatives who find that stage a bit scary because it's like the blank page. Sounds to me like you feel, I'm going to be writing anyway, so it's a stage where you can kind of look around and you just find something.
Yes, and hopefully, you're some of your time's taken up doing book events once mm-hmm. a book is out. So it's not that you write it and then that you have no relationship with that book again. hopefully you have a few months where you're busy doing other things,
Okay.
connected to that book.
Yeah.
But you've seen about, what inspires me or whatever. But my debut novel was inspired by a building, which you alluded to. The Italian chapel in Orkney.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few stories within stories connected with this, so which I can tell you if you're happy to listen. So in 2005. I came up to the Highlands, so I was from the south of England. I came up to be with Catherine, and we got married that year, and we went to Orkney on our honeymoon.
Yeah.
And we visited the Italian chapel built by Italian prisoners of war during the Second World War. And I would say to anyone, if they actually visit the chapel and it's busy, just wait, because the tour groups never stay long.
Yeah.
And when you get the building with only a few people in it, or just yourselves, the atmosphere is totally different. And we had it to ourselves.
Yeah, lovely.
And we went in, and we ended up standing in front of the rood screen and looking at the beautiful images. And we were both just moved to tears. I mean, we both had tears streaming down our faces. And I thought, well, this is extraordinary. How can a Second World War Nissen hut affect me so much, and Catherine, that we're moved to tears? And so before we'd even left the building, I decided I was going to research everything I could about its history. Now, I have to explain that I had always wanted to be a playwright, never a novelist. So this had been with me ever since I was a teenager, that I wanted to be a playwright. So when I started researching the history of the chapel, which no one had actually done before, the thing that I wrote was actually a film script, which I'd never done before in my life. But I wrote what would have been a full-length film script. And I started sending that off to film agents around the UK. Of course, it got rejected out of sight. I mean, I'm sure I had no idea what I was doing. But one agent, a film agent down in London, and in her rejection letter, she actually put a comment in. She said, I think you'll have more luck writing this as a historical fiction and approaching publishers. Yeah. And it was a Saturday morning, this letter came, and I read it and threw it into the box of rejection letters, which was a very, very big box. Yeah. People should always keep their rejection letters. And I was mumbling and saying, well, I can't do this. I'm not a novelist. I've never thought of writing a novel. This is not me, And we went to bed that night. And then the Sunday morning, we were lying in bed, and I said to Catherine, well, I'm going to have to do this thing, aren't I? And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to have to write this novel. And I hadn't been thinking of it at all. I'd gone to bed, no idea of writing a novel. That was just not my skill, not my, And I woke up, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to write this novel. So that then set me off on a quest, another 2 years of research and writing. Yeah. And then I ended up with a manuscript and was then approaching book publishers, and that got rejected. It was just, and I was pretty much down to one or two publishing houses that I hadn't heard back from. One was Black and White Publishing in Edinburgh, which was one of the leading publishing houses in Scotland, but they were mainly non-fiction. Yeah. And I was going to send an email, and the typical, oh, I'm very sorry to bother you. I wonder if you'd had time to read my, all that stuff. And I didn't. I rang them. And I got through to the managing director, a guy called Campbell Brown. Right. And so we had a chat, and he was saying, well, they're really a non-fiction house. They would be interested in a non-fiction on the chapel. And I said, well, I haven't got a non-fiction. Yeah. I've spent 3 or 4 years writing a fiction. Yeah. And then I got really passionate on the phone, and I said to him, I didn't know this guy at all. I said, Campbell, sometimes in life you believe in something, and I believe in this story. And it went silent. And I thought he'd gone, actually. Anyway, he said, right, don't do anything for a week. Give me a week. Right. I said, right, fine, fine. That's, So that was the Wednesday. The Friday evening, 6 o'clock-ish or so, and I'm making dinner. And Catherine she worked about 25 minutes away. So she would always ring and say, leaving work. And it's nice to time the dinner. So the phone went 6 o'clock. And I just stopped myself from saying, oh, is that you leaving, love?
Yeah.
And this voice said, Campbell Brown here. Well, the rice went up in the air, the carrots went on the floor.
Yeah.
He said, we've been discussing your book all morning, and we want to do it. And I actually was confused. I didn't, because we talked about the
Yes, yes.
I said, I don't, which one? What do you mean? He said, we'll publish the fiction and we want you to write a non-fiction.
Wow.
And I'll send you the contracts in the post next week, and in an envelope the following week. There they came, 2 contracts.
Yeah.
And those 2 people, the film agents who had that kindness to say, take the time and say, look, I think you'd be better off writing this as a book. And that conversation, I am totally convinced that if I'd sent an email,
it wouldn't have
happened.
Yeah.
It was that phone call. I made a connection. He heard the passion I had, and I wouldn't be sitting here now otherwise.
What's great about that story, Philip, and thank you for sharing it, is what you're demonstrating there is the resilience that you have to turn a creative idea into something that is going to eventually go to market, I guess would be the way to put it. And as you've said, you've kind of put that into that one person who was kind, but you endured all those rejection letters. I mean, having your idea of keeping all your rejection letters seems extraordinary to me. It's the last thing I want to do. I would want to throw them all away. Yeah. But you obviously, as you said, you had that belief. And when it came to the conversation, when you were able to have that conversation with somebody who had the chance to make a difference, you were able to articulate that. You were able to convince him in a conversation that it was worth him at least considering, which is a very impressive thing to have done. And as you said, it kind of follows on from that moment.
Yes, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that phone call.
It's a great story.
Yeah, thank you. And if you're, these books, the last one I wrote came out last August, and that was 3 or 4 years to write. Yeah. You've got to feel it in your heart that this is a story you've got to tell. Yeah. And if you don't, you're never going to do it. See it through to the end.
Well, and we've talked to musicians last time we did these conversations, and it's the same really, I think, across all creative arts. If you've got nothing to say, if there's not something you care about saying, why would someone listen, or why would someone read if you've got nothing that you're passionate about? And that connection of sharing something that means something to you is obviously right at the heart of it, and it is what obviously sustains you through the long, hard work. Thank you for sharing that. So what is a typical writing day like for you? Do you have a set process? This is when you start, this is when you end?
It's changed, because when I wrote the Italian Chapel, I was working full-time. I'd moved up to the Highlands, but I was still working full-time for a company down in the south, a sort of technical writer. So that was very different. The big thing was I gained 3 hours a day by not commuting. Yeah, and so I've still got up really early, and I wrote for a couple of hours before I logged on at 8:45 for my day job. Right. And that was really important to do that. But then, I'm retired now. So if I was working, say the Last Switch of Scotland, that would be very much 7-8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and bits of weekend. Writing from about 7:30 in the morning, 10 o'clock is coffee time. So then I would always print off and proofread with pen and paper.
And so it's quite, so you kind of have set your own sort of hours, and you stick to them. Yeah. What happens in those times when you're not inspired, or you're like, oh, I don't want to do this today? What do you do?
I've been very lucky. I've never had that. Okay. I'm driven to write, and I've never had that feeling of, I've got to write 500 words today, and Right. So I've always been, let me on that keyboard. I've got to tell the story, and I'm just driven to it, and I'm just absorbed in it.
So it comes back to that, in a sense, that motivation. And I guess for you, it sounds like the more research, the more understanding of the story you're telling, almost the more excited you get about sharing it.
Yes. Yeah. The more things I discover. Yeah.
Okay. And you talked a little about the start of your relationship with publishing. Obviously, the landscape of all sorts of things is changing pretty rapidly.
Very much.
What has happened for you in that sort of? How's that working now for you in terms of publishing? Has it changed?
I think I've been very lucky. I got in with black and white publishing. The Italian Chapel came out in 2009. So those were the days when you could approach the publishers direct without an agent. Yeah. And I don't have an agent to this day, a literary agent. So I've been very, very lucky to have that relationship, and they've been tremendous to work with and very supportive. So my last book, A Fire in Their Hearts, was the 6th book that they've published of mine. So I have been very, very lucky. I can't say otherwise. And
But you could say luck, but also what you've demonstrated in how you've approached this is you've been very resilient, you've kept going, and you've taken advantage of the opportunities you've been given, which is that's down to you.
Well, yeah, thank you. I mean, it's not I can't say a job. That's not the right word. But if you're not resilient and determined and feel that passion, then it is tough to actually get anywhere.
Yeah, and I think also going back to that first feedback about the film script, as you said, it would have been easy just to dismiss that. But someone had taken the trouble to say to you, well, here's an alternative.
Yes.
There's an alternative.
That one person.
Do you now that you're more confident in your creative processes, do you, like, if someone says to you, do you let people read things as you go along? Do you discuss it? Or are you like, I know what I'm doing? Are you confident?
The thing I'll do, I do talk to my wife, Catherine, a lot. She's a very practical person, and that's really useful. With the historical fiction, I love to weave in tiny detail of lives, and the only way you can get that is to track down experts, and whether it's 17th century muskets or whether it's how do you brew ale in the Highlands in the early 18th century. You've got to get the experts, and what I normally then do is I would send them the text for that scene, or maybe a chapter. With the last Witch of Scotland, there's 2 chapters where the court case, because it all builds up to the big court case. And there was a professor of law over at Glasgow University who really, really helpful.
Brilliant.
So I would send these scenes or chapters to those, but it's just for accuracy. It's just for factual accuracy. It's not for comment on anything. But so that's what I plough on and finish it, and then it goes to the publisher, and then you go through the editing process as all authors do.
And I think what's interesting about that is, I guess, in other creative forms, there is a point at which you hold that in your head until it's explainable to another person, right? And so in a way, in some ways with writing, it feels like you could allow people to sort of read it before it's finished, but I totally understand in a way that what you're doing is you want it to be complete really before.
Everyone works in a different way, and it's just how I like to do it. But I can totally appreciate other writers work in groups, get feedback, and that's all great to have.
Brilliant. Is there advice you would give then to someone starting out? I think I can kind of guess, but if you're someone who's not written anything but has a deep passion for it.
That's me. Difficult. You've just got to keep going. Have the belief. If you feel the passion, don't give up. And however you might get there, you'll get there eventually. If you keep at it.
If you keep going, and I guess what for you is the thing that keeps that going is a story that is fascinating to you and becomes more fascinating almost as you begin to tell it.
Yes, and which I feel hasn't been told before in the form of a novel.
Yeah, and what point are you at now then? Is there another one just about to start, or where are you now?
No, well, A Fire in Their Hearts came out last August, and that was inspired by the 17th century Scottish Covenanters, which most people have no idea who they were. In very, very basic terms, they fought it was a civil war in Scotland for decades, which people don't know about. But they fought various Scottish monarchs as to who was the head of the Church of Scotland, because they thought it should be Jesus Christ, as it says in the scriptures. And various monarchs said that it
should be them.
It should be them, basically. And that was a brutal civil war. But the even more unknown part of this was that captured Covenanters were often sent to the plantations as forced indentured servants, forced labour. And so I've got fictitious character, actually Violet. Most of the protagonists in my novels are female, and Violet ends up on a sugar plantation in Barbados in 1680. So she's fictitious, but she follows the real stories of what did happen to people. And that was tough to do that research. That was grim. It was a dark tunnel to tread, I think, as a
can
writer.
imagine,
And
yeah.
I didn't realise how long that tunnel was until the book was written and to the publisher and what have you. And I've come out of that for the very first time. I've come out of that, and I just don't want to write for now. I
Yeah,
need,
you
I need a
rest.
total break.
Yeah.
Total break. I'm not looking for ideas. I'm not.
No.
It's not that I've not. I just need a break because that was a tough book to write.
Well, it's interesting because that obviously relates to the way that you write in terms of how immersed you are in it and how much research
yes.
you're doing.
Yeah.
As you said, it's almost very hard to get out of that if that's what you're surrounded. It's almost like a method actor, but
I mean,
writer.
and as I say, all writers are different. But when I'm working on a novel, it's in my head all the time. You're just thinking of it all. Scenes and dialogue and plot and the emotions and all that. And when it was about a third of A Fire in Their Hearts is set in Barbados, so it's a big part of the book. And so that was, but it's fine. It's out. I'm pleased with it. I'm very pleased with the result. And Black and White have done a great job. Yeah. But to answer your question, no, just having a total break.
Okay.
Just not.
That's great. Well, enjoy your break.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Last thing, you have supported our student group, which is the UHI Scribblers previously, which is a group of students who are studying creative writing with us at Northwest Hebrides and UHI. And can you just say a little bit about what you've done with them?
Yeah, I'm not sure I've supported them that much, to be honest. I met one of the students at a sort of writing event, and then I was subsequently invited to give a online talk to the members. Of course, they're obviously all over Scotland, I gather.
Yeah.
So I just gave an hour's chat about where do writers get their ideas, or where have I got my ideas from, and how have I approached story, how have I approached research and that sort of thing. So hopefully it was of some use, but
Great.
they listened very politely, and there weren't any little empty chairs on the little.
I'm sure.
So that
I'm
that
sure
was
it was appreciated. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Well,
Philip.
thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Round of applause for Philip. Thank you. Thank you, Philip. Enjoyed sharing this time with you and getting to know about your creative process. And what's really interesting, I think, are the links and the differences between everyone we've spoken to. And as you've alluded to yourself, Philip, everybody's process is different. So if you're watching this and you have your own creative process, it's always, I think, helpful to hear what other people do, because there will be parts of what people do that you can take for your own and use that are helpful. And certainly what I've got from Philip is that resilience to just keep going and going. It's an impressive thing. Thank you. Okay, so to our online audience, thank you for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed watching. If you feel inspired and are interested in studying creative arts subjects that like creative writing, visit our websites and socials and look out for our open days and evening events. I'd like to thank our music and sound production students for producing the sound during the recording, and the filmmaking students for getting my best side, whatever side that is. Please do like and share this video, and that will help us to reach more people. I look forward to seeing you during our next video podcast episode. Until next time, keep creating. Thank you very much.